For a man to conquer himself is the first and noblest of all victories. Plato. There is no story about me without the story of my neighborhood, which is over 300 years old. The first map found of the neighborhood is from 1701, and from the founder of my family's parish, St. Anne's Basilica. The land was fought over by the French and the British. The land already belonged to native tribes like the Chippewa, Oneida, Ojibwe, and the Potawatomi. My neighborhood was also the end of the Underground Railroad where slaves fled north to be free in Canada. You cannot have a story about Detroit, and you cannot have a story about my family without black folks. My godmother, Mama Charlie, is from a slave family of Mississippi. My father's best friend, who's basically my uncle, Morgan, was from a slave family in Alabama. He taught me how to make corn liquor. Numerous aunts, uncles, nieces, and nephews in my family are all black folks. You were reminded constantly in Detroit of the violence and trouble that Europeans can cause when they have bad intentions. The second largest Jewish community in the United States is where I'm from in Detroit. It was home to the Purple Gang, and when Prohibition came, 70% of the alcohol that flowed into the United States, including to Al Capone's Chicago crew, came across the river in my neighborhood. My neighborhood is home to the largest Arab-speaking population in the world outside of the Middle East, called Dearborn, Michigan. From my bedroom window at my father's house, I could hear the call to prayer. My neighborhood was home to the Teamsters and Jimmy Hoffa's crew. My little brother's dad, Big Dan, the guy that actually raised me, used to pick up dope for Marvin Gaye. Him and his buddies would bust into the Masonic Temple with his friends, Jimmy and Larry and Pooley, to watch the Four Tops and other Motown groups. My father is 98.3% Irish. I saw his DNA test. He's from Galway. My mother's from Guadalajara, Jalisco, so her blood was split right down the middle from a few native tribes to the area, and the other half was European Spaniard that either got raped into them or they were married off to as to better their station. Where I'm from, the safest thing to do is get in where you fit in. Only for me, I didn't fit in anywhere. My neighborhood is called Mexican Town. The white people knew I wasn't white, and the Hispanics knew that I was. When I actually made a friend, I knew it was real. In this cauldron, this melting pot of heat and passion and violence and death, I came to get a sense of myself. The most successful people in my neighborhood were mostly gangsters of one form or another. In the mid-'80s, my father caught his second wife cheating on him, and he shot her and her lover. He had to go to prison for a while. My mother decided to never tell me why my father disappeared. I just saw him some years later riding my bike. He later turned out to be my best friend. My little brother's dad, the guy that raised me, Big Dan, I just called him Dad. He dressed like all of Hoffa's crew of 60s gangsters. I always felt so cool hanging out with him. He died of a drug overdose in his living room in 2009. I had to go there and deal with it. My little brother was still too young. In 2014, I went home to my father, who wasn't doing well that summer. Later in October, he shot himself in the heart 20 feet away from me while I was sleeping. It helped me learn my father's life was his. It's not about me. All these interconnected threads made me come to realize that these are just beautiful collection of stories to add context to who I choose to be. You see, there is no me without the we. You cannot make an original piece of art without first starting with a blank canvas. That is why I open with Plato. It is my ethos to let myself die and rise anew. This is also why I will end with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., as he changed and shaped my life tremendously. Yes, the hour is dark. Evil comes forth in the guise of good. It is a time of double talk when men in high places have a high blood pressure of deceptive rhetoric and an anemia of concrete performance. He is more relevant now. We are all living through the moral death of Western culture, and whether we like it or not, we'll all have stories to tell about it. Thank you.